Have you ever gotten in your own way?
Like how?
Like you screwed up an opportunity because you just couldn't let it happen. You couldn't let good things happen to you. Like everything was going for you, and then you just found a way to like take control or insist on taking control, and then you dorked it up for yourself.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, 100%. Like you think you know what's going on in the situation, so therefore you think you have permission to take control of it and make it go how you think it should go. And then you just mess it up because it's like you weren't supposed to.
Or, you just blame something else other than yourself.
Like, yeah.
We've all done that.
There's 8 million different ways to get in your own way.
Anyway, that's what we're talking about today. It's a concept that keeps coming up over and over and over in our lives. We figured it was time for a podcast on it. So there you go.
Roll the intro.
Welcome to the Let's Quit podcast.
Quitting is not always a bad thing.
If you have the right mindset, quitting can be the most powerful tool you have on your journey to success. It's certainly been helpful for us.
Whether it's flying through hurricanes, building our businesses, or just trying to get to bed on time, we're always trying to level up and improve our lives.
This is the show where we share the lessons, experiences, and friends that have helped us live this incredible life. So let's quit the bad and grow the good together.
All right, welcome back, friends. We are so happy to have you with us on this episode of the podcast. If you're an old listener, thank you for coming back and listening to us. If you're a new listener, welcome, and we would absolutely love a review, preferably 5 stars, on your podcasting app of choice. And we also want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon for supporting us. We are still a listener-supported show for now, and you guys really make all the difference. So thank you so much for being so generous and helping us do what we love to do.
All right, Jennie, what have we been up to this week? This week's YouTube video was, I don't know, I have no idea how it responded because we haven't published it yet when we're recording. But I feel like it was some hard clickbait. I don't know, threatening that we're splitting up.
Yeah. Which we were splitting up, but not in the way that you think we were splitting up.
Hence the clickbait.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was kind of an interesting topic. Like, it wasn't necessarily about a specific build or like a sales strategy. It wasn't one of our tips on how to improve your marketing or sales or anything like that. It was just a little bit of a different style. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, so the theme this week was, if you haven't seen the YouTube video yet, go watch the YouTube video. But basically our theme for this week was sort of like divide and conquer.
Yes.
Jennie and I have both been working on every facet of the business so far. And this week, we finally got busy enough. I mean, this is something good. We finally got busy enough that we both couldn't do everything together.
Right. Like, we've always kind of had tasks that were, like, not assigned, but, like, one person naturally just started taking on these tasks. And then the rest we would just work on together. And so this last, week or two, we were finally like, nah, we really got to separate everything we're doing, not just these few tasks that have randomly become ours. So
yeah, and the reason we thought to do that was because we're getting ready to go do some more Air Force stuff for these winter storm missions. Because fun fact, hurricane hunters fly through winter storms also. It's something we've picked up in the last few years, but we're getting ready to go do that, and that's going to be another 2.5 week break from the business. I mean, we're happy to do it, but we've got to prepare. We want to beat our sales numbers from January in February, so we've got to work to get ahead a little bit, just to stay on top and ahead of the curve. So
right, it just kind of made sense for us to split some roles.
Right, and I don't know. I think it worked really well.
Yeah, I think it took a little bit of getting used to because there are a lot of areas in the business that we kind of just know that we do together, because that's who we are. Like Jennie and Davis, we're a team. We started together, and it feels kind of funny.
We are one of those do everything together couples.
We have the same exact jobs as each other. We literally go to work together. We work from home together, and all of our hobbies are
and I
together.
love every minute of it. No, it's actually really fun. I know a lot of people don't like those everything together couples. I don't know if there's jealousy. I don't know what it is, but like,
or we're just like annoying.
Well, we're annoying besides the fact. True. Even if we did everything separately, we would still be annoying to other people. But yeah, it's just fun. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else with anybody else. So it's just It's just fun.
Good times.
I need a button on the thing that's like, oh.
No, we don't. No, I'm sorry. I'm going to be like the cheesy police and be like, nah, we don't need any of that here. But yeah, the rest of the week, you worked on building a prototype desk.
Yeah, so just in the background while we're waiting on cutting board orders to fill more of our schedule, we're prototyping some of our other furniture. So again, catching everybody up. If you don't know, we got a furniture business in the Houston area. What we're trying to do is we're trying to sell closing gifts to real estate agents. From there, those real estate agents will deliver our premium packaged cutting board with their name laser engraved on it, and inside the box they're going to see all sorts of advertisements for the furniture that we build. Yep. The idea being that they're so wowed and floored by how nice their cutting board is that they really start to consider the high quality furniture that we have to offer.
And they just moved into a brand new empty house and probably need a piece of furniture or two.
Right. So that's sort of our sales plan. And like while we're waiting on these cutting board orders to come in, Jennie is predominantly working sales. We'll hit that in a minute. But while we're waiting for traction to get started and get a reputation out there with the real estate agents in Houston, we're prototyping what we want to sell at scale. I mean, we'll still do custom furniture to some extent, but the more non-custom we can make our custom furniture, the more repeatable we can make our custom furniture. Even if it's got a custom finish or a custom shape or size, if we can get all of our processes down to where they're, interchangeable parts, kind of like Lego. If you were to sell like custom Legos, you can do that like the Lego store.
Yes.
Where like you design your thing and then like you go through the Lego shop and it tells you how many of each brick
you
to
gotta
get.
like really love Legos to be that person that like.
Well, I was a kid once.
Custom. If you're a very interested child in Legos, apparently.
Anyway, it's the same sort of thing. Like the more plug and play we can make all of our furniture, the easier it's going to be for us to sell at scale. The easier it's going to be to hire employees and train them up. So just trying to work on prototypes of like how can I make 6 different tables with virtually the same parts,
right,
or close to the same parts, and still make it different styles, make it interesting, make it attractive. So that's what I've been working on all week, is building a desk. And fortunately, one of our friends, listener of the show,
yes,
they have agreed to buy the desk prototype from us. So I mean, we're just charging them materials and stuff because it's a prototype, and we just need to get rid of it. We honestly don't have a place for it.
We literally just don't have room for it. We really just needed to build it to learn the procedure
and to take pictures
and throw that baby all over Instagram and our shopping products page on the website and everything. So we're like, I don't actually have a use for this right now.
But they do. They do. Thank you guys for agreeing to take our
desk,
our waste of a desk. So anyway, that's really what we've been up to. Well, talk about your sales stuff. What have you done this week for sales?
Yeah. So I can't remember how much we talked about it on past podcasts, but we are just trying a bunch of different avenues to reach out to these realtors. There's a couple ways you can like come at it. You can find them on social media. We found a bunch of realtors all over Instagram, and that was like a jumping off point to contact them. Sending them messages like, hey, is a cutting board as a closing gift, is that a ridiculous idea? Like, how do you feel about that? Or asking them questions that they were very apt to respond to, rather than just throwing a bunch of information at them in their DMs and then them ghosting us. So we spent a bunch of time probably messaging like 30 or 40 or something realtors like that, and we got some really good responses. And we would just send them a board. Like if they respond and said, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea, we're like, hey, we do too. Why don't we send you a board and you can, see what we're talking about. And so we got some really positive leads off of that. We've also tried, I've also tried just like straight up cold calling, like trying to get a hold of brokers and tell them what we do. That was not completely a loss, if I'm going to put a positive spin on it. It was not a 100% failure.
99%.
It was a 99% failure. Anyways, so yeah, I tried calling a lot of people, and very rarely do you actually get in touch with like the head broker, because they're screening their calls. They're busy people. They're going to let it go to voicemail. And if it's not like their typical, hey, I'm looking to buy a house, can you please help me call? They're not going to call you back. So I tried a couple different like messages left on their voicemails. Sometimes I would get a hold of the realtors in their brokerage rather than the actual like broker themselves. And then that was kind of a different conversation. And sometimes I get a hold of the secretary. And sometimes you're like, well, you don't want to talk to the secretary. That's not the person in charge. But I've actually learned this week that talking with the secretary was actually more helpful than like just trying to go for the broker. It sounds crazy.
The secretary is like the OG influencer.
Yeah.
It's like the right hand of the king or whatever. Like it's a big freaking deal to be on the good side of that secretary.
Exactly. And so if I had like a really good interaction with a secretary at an office, I would just send the secretary aboard. Because like, who's thanking the secretary and doing nice things for them? Like, not many people. So if you can make the person...
realtor, if the realtor is any kind of protective or likes their secretary or assistant, we're throwing around the word secretary.
Yeah,
that's not the
that.
politically correct way to say administrative assistant.
Yes.
Chief of staff is another nice way to put it. That's what Bill Gates says.
Chief of first impressions. That's one I see on these people's websites a lot.
Oh, wow.
Chief of first impressions.
Wow.
I like that.
That's a nice HR way to dress that up.
You know, hey, at least they're creative. I don't know.
But no, like if the person in charge is really protective of their employees, if they really like their assistants or whatever, like you start treating them nice, they're really going to start to be interested because then they feel guilty. They're like, oh, shoot, am I not treating my employees nice enough? And you get a call back pretty quick in that regard.
Yeah, so I got one I got a decent lead from an administrative creative first impressions director.
What a title.
That went pretty well, but otherwise the cold calls were like, there are definitely methods that are more effective than that, but I would not have known until I tried it and like crossed it off the list. So you can't, leave it out to dry and never try it.
I mean, like sales call, like how do I say this nicely? Like that's not your strong suit, is it? It's just talking to strangers at length about stuff that you want to sell them, right?
Yeah. Yes. And I don't know if it's like necessarily only talking to people at length. I don't know. I just have this fear of like controlling people and getting them to do what I want them to do. What
does that even mean?
I'm scared that I'm going to sound bossy or they're going to think I'm rude or like, whoa, this salesperson is like telling me to call them back. How dare they? All these things that like you think the other person is thinking and they're not necessarily thinking. And there's very polite ways to get people to do what you want them to.
And it's not bad or it's not evil because you quote unquote manipulated them. We were
but
talking
in
about
my
this
brain,
the other day.
it sounds like, I don't know. It always feels like that sounds bad, but it's not.
Well, we were talking about this the other day. Like if the person who calls somebody else a manipulator, again, like I'm painting in very broad strokes. I understand I am in like hot water right here on eggshells, whatever metaphor works best for you. Like somebody who says so-and-so manipulated me is someone who's got a victim mindset. They're not taking responsibility for them to connect the dots or see it. You're putting the entire control of the conversation in the other person's hands, which does make them a manipulator. If you're not smart enough to sniff it out or to question or to have a healthy amount of skepticism, and then you get duped on something, like it again. There's exceptions to everything, but like most of the time, somebody who's complaining about being manipulated or being controlled is somebody who's not taking the time to research both sides of the claim or to listen to both news agencies or listen to both sides of the story. So all these people that love to play victim, like you're just not taking responsibility for learning all the information before you make a decision. So I don't know where I was going with that.
Basically, I should not feel like I'm manipulating people.
Yes.
That one. So that's been a really good learning experience. Gosh, what's another avenue we've gone down? Oh, literally just like blind mailing people aboard. We've done that too.
This has probably been our number one sales strategy is just to find realtors, find them, just find their address, like their office address, and just put their name on it and send them aboard.
Yep,
just
with
like
a
we would do.
Note.
Just like we would do at a open house, but you send it to them. It's on their turf. It's in their home. Because when we gang up on these real estate agents at these open houses, it works, but they're on their back foot the whole time.
Right.
They don't really know how to process it. We're throwing a lot in. We're giving them a really nice board. We're trying to give them a little speech.
Trying to explain who we are and why the heck we're here.
Their head is so focused on the open house that like, no wonder it's not really working.
Yep.
I mean, you called back a few of them this week,
Yes.
and like it was almost like they had they remembered, but like they totally forgot that we came.
And this was the funniest thing, right? So we had a bunch of open houses that we had gone to, and we'd given realtors boards, and we had mailed some out, and it'd been a couple weeks, and I hadn't like seen an order or anything. And this was after all these realtors like, oh, I love this idea. I will definitely buy a gift from you. And I was like, well, it's been 2 weeks. Like, were they just, giving us lip service? I don't know. And so I called them back to follow up, and literally the response I got out of the majority of them was, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so glad you called. I lost the card that you gave me at the open house, and I had no idea what website to go to. How much are these boards again? Where can I find them? What's the process? And then they're like, yeah, and I sent them an email.
Hours later, we get orders coming in just because they forgot or they misplaced the card. So it's like we're over here thinking again.
They hate me.
Well,
when they just forgot.
They don't hate you. I'm just over here thinking we didn't provide enough value. We didn't do a good enough job like wowing them. When in reality we did. It's just, sometimes you lose stuff.
People are people.
Anyway, it's just comforting to us to know that people are not scared of salespeople. People are not scared to do business. Like all of these fears that like you and I have been like projecting onto each other the last couple of weeks just don't exist, which brings us right to the title topic. We got one more point I want to talk about, but that was such a good transition. I won't lose it. We'll keep it going. We're going to go right into the title topic now. We'll talk about that other topic next week. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, title topic.
We don't have a quote. Hang on. We'll be right back.
No. Yes, I do.
Whoa, a quote on the fly. Here we go.
A quote on the fly. You ready? So, I was listening to an audiobook on my way home. Oh my gosh, you're knocking stuff over on the table.
I'm trying to type this quote up while you're saying it.
Anyways, so I met one of my friends for lunch today. Also a listener of the show. Hi. And
same person taking the desk.
Yes, same person taking the desk. We appreciate you. You're the best. So I was driving home from getting lunch with this person, and I was listening to an audiobook on the way home, and it just so happened to be Atomic Habits. And there was this quote, and so he's talking about like, you have to have systems in place because you can't trust yourself. Like your stupid brain is like sometimes just not going to let you accomplish the things you want to, and you have to understand that and just build a system where it's like, hey, this is how I'm going to tell myself to go because I'm either going to be too scared to make a change in my life, I'm not going to be dedicated enough to make a change in my life, and I'm just going to keep getting in my way and make zero progress. So his quote was, you do not, I'm going to kind of botch it, but you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And I'm blanking on his name.
James Clear.
James Clear. Thank you. James
Habits.
Clear, Atomic Habits. Yeah. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And I think that's because as humans, we fear like change. We fear, so many things. So it's like, how can we trust ourselves to make progress in our lives if we don't kind of force ourselves through a system or like an organized progress or a train of events.
Right. Well, I mean, that's been our focus for the last like year and a half. While we've not been able to like start the business, we've been working on systems and procedures and checklists and how are we going to manage our customers? What's our philosophy on hiring? How are we going to like manage employees? Like we've been trying to like nail down all these specifics for these systems. And I just love that we're hearing what we've found to be true in other sources. Mm-hmm. Like
E-Myth?
I mean, that's how, oh my gosh, that's how science works, okay? Is like you're supposed to publish the same thing another scientist published. Mm-hmm. Because when you publish the same thing so many times in a row, you can finally start to understand that you can build on that principle.
Right.
And it's the same thing here. Like we're finding through our own hard experience that we need to lean on systems, not rely on ourselves or our goals to push us forward. Mm-hmm. We also learned that in E-Myth by Michael Gerber. We also learned that it sounds like you're learning it in this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's so comforting to listen to other successful people or other researchers who have like got experience on this coming to the same conclusions as we are because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard.
Oh, and we're off topic, but we're bringing it back.
So like the whole point is that we can start to build on those principles, and even though we're not seeing results, that will keep us motivated to move forward, is to say, look, I'm not seeing it right now, But because you and I struggle to do discipline like every single day to do the same thing with no result. Like we just have to understand.
We get impatient and we're like, let's think of a new idea to do this. That's what we need.
But the comfort of knowing that other successful people are telling us we're doing the right thing, then that just keeps us motivated to keep, doing
chugging
our repetitions and just chugging along. So anyway, great quote.
Off the cuff.
Pulled right out of somewhere that I'm not going to say.
Thin air.
Thin air, that one. Pulled right out of thin air. Cool. So, title topic, get out of your own way. Jennie, what do we mean by that?
Basically, like, quit making yourself the bottleneck. For example, I am afraid of making cold calls and occasionally also afraid of talking to strangers, aka realtors, and potential clients on the phone sometimes. But I realized that's what's stopping us from getting sales. Like, that is my fault. I am the bottleneck. It's not anybody else's fault. It's not that the realtors don't want to do business with me. It is literally because I'm scared of making phone calls.
So what is it you're actually afraid of? Is it a fear of judgment? I know you've already unpacked this, and I'm asking you to talk about it in a different light. But like, what is it that you're actually afraid will happen in the future?
Okay, so this is funny because I'm afraid that they won't want to talk to me because they think I'm salesy. Like, oh, you're a salesperson. I don't want to talk to you. You're, slimy and sleazy and we don't deal with you. There's that. Or
Is that how we deal with salespeople?
See, and that's the thing. It's like, the sleazy ones, but like.
Yeah, but if somebody legitimately like approached us, we get emails all the time.
Right. Like, no, that's not how we deal with them.
Right. Are we ever rude? Or do we ever hang up on people? Do we ever send people a snarky email response?
Right. Which the point of that is, no, we don't. So it's a completely irrational fear. So that's what I'm afraid of, is that they're going to, lump me into the group of, scammy, sleazy salesmen. They're not going to like my idea. They're going to be, or they're going to pick out a problem with what I have. Like, oh, your boards are way too expensive. There's no way I could possibly do this because according to my rules, I'm not allowed to. And then I'm going to be sitting here like,
but we have a script.
I
know.
You know
how to respond to those things.
Again, irrational fear. I do. I know exactly how to respond to those things. And what makes it even worse is I did have one really bad phone call that went that way. It was like my dreaded phone call that I didn't want to get.
Talk about that.
So
set the stage. Tell me what happened.
I will set the stage. So
it was a warm, sunny day.
In Houston, Texas.
February in Houston, Texas.
Actually, it was rainy, so it really didn't help the situation because it was kind of sad and gloomy outside. Anyways, I was calling a bunch of different brokerages trying to either talk to the person in charge or the second in command. This was before I realized how valuable the administrative director of first impression secretary administrative assistants were. So I tried calling. Would you bring it back together?
I'm sorry. That was just too funny.
So I tried calling the second in command person. In the answer, and I was like, hi, I'm like, hey, my name's Jennie. I'm going to change the names for you, but my name's Jennie. I was wondering if I could talk to Jeff. And then she was like, I don't even know you. And I was like, oh, hey, yeah, I completely understand. You're right. You don't know me. My name's Jennie. I'm from Smart Table Company, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, hey, basically, I was providing her some sort of value. I won't get into the weeds of, if we were giving her a cutting board or whatever, but I was solely giving value at that time. I was not asking for anything. And she goes, well, what did I call him? I forget what I made his name. Jeff. Thank you. She's like, well, if you wanted to talk to Jeff, why did you call my phone number? Literally in that same tone. And I was like, wow, nope, we've already lost. This person is not here. They're not, even going to have a conversation as two polite people.
She left a great first impression.
Yes.
To be the officer of first impressions.
Right. And so at that point I was like, no, I completely understand. I was, looking at your website. It looks really nice. And I just happened to find a phone number because I really wanted to get in touch with you. You seem like a really great, local company here in Houston. And she's like, well, you can send me an email. And I was like, I would love to get that email. What email address is it? And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And then in the back of my head, I was like, if I ever had an employee that handled a phone call, even with a stranger in that way, they'd be gone. They'd be done. Anyways, and so the point is that phone call didn't completely destroy me. I solved my fear. That's what I was fearing, was a phone call like that. And it happened and it wasn't that bad. I laugh at it now. And it just goes to show how relative and subjective your fears are. Because even when you experience your worst fear, it's like, was that really the worst? That's what you were fearing? Really?
What I've noticed with my friends just growing up is like, I've been fascinated by fear, like just my whole life. And then when I push people to like answer like, well, what are you afraid of? Draw me a picture. Tell me what you're afraid of happening in the physical world. Most people can't come up with it because it's not a real legitimate fear. It is irrational. And people can't see that. And I do it too. I'm not trying to say that I don't do that. I'm just saying like, I've been fascinated that when I push other people to explain what it is very clearly that they're afraid of, they're not afraid of anything. It's all in their head. And so that's what I've tried to use of like, dang, where am I doing that? And that's where it gets kind of sad because you start to realize how often you do that all the time, day in and day out. And if you don't think you're doing stuff like that day in and day out, you're probably doing it way more than the rest of us. It's just a nasty business. I don't know why our brains are wired that way, but they just are, to like not see their own weaknesses, which in and of itself is a weakness. So. Right.
Which is why we say like, oh my gosh, get out of your own way because you're your biggest roadblock sometimes.
Right. So that's a lot of philosophy and theory and psychology. And anyway, we're not qualified in any of those fields. Let's just talk about our experience. So number one, like, get out of your own way. Quit making yourself the bottleneck. Let other people help you. If things are going your way, just let other people help you. Additionally, the second point we want to make is you need to be focusing on reducing. I didn't even know this before you gave the quote. I typed this up before you. Anyway, the listeners don't care. Reduce the number of decisions you have to make every day. Going back to James Clear and his systems. Like, don't make 10,000 decisions a day, even if they're easy. We were talking to Grant, a buddy of ours in the Stud Stack last night. We were talking to him and I'm like, hey dude, I know you do custom work, but is there any way that you can like make a standard drawer size for all of your built-in cabinets? That way you can just keep a giant pile of drawers in the back of the garage or your van or whatever. And like, that's just one less thing you have to worry about next time you build a thing. Cause he's worried about like not having enough time and stuff like that to get things done. And so, I was just giving him the advice that I'm giving here is like, just make a system that makes your decisions. Make your decisions once and then say, okay, every time I'm faced with a situation that looks like this, I have already decided how it's going to play out. So
you don't have to take the time to play the mental, gymnastics at like, do I want to do it this way? Should I change my mind? There's no room for fear or doubt to sneak in.
Because even if you enjoy making those decisions, even if it's your hobby, even if it's your dream, even if you're trying to change jobs, like, or like whatever it is that you're trying to manage, you're still wasting energy by making those decisions. And when when life throws you a curveball in a couple of weeks and you've been making nonstop decisions because you haven't systematized anything, now all of a sudden you don't have the brain power to wrap your head around the whole situation and solve the problem because you wasted all your energy like making little tiny decisions. Like meal prep, that's another thing. Like that's a perfect example of where we have removed the number of decisions we have to make every day. We've got a long list of like foods that we like, just meals, dishes, whatever.
Like 15 recipes or something like that.
Right. And we rotate through the whole list. And every Sunday and every Thursday, because those are our days off, we meal prep until the next Sunday or Thursday. That way we don't have to choose what to eat. We don't have to go through the kitchen and make food and slow ourselves down. We can batch it out. We can make a system where we make all of our food.
Because I feel like at the end of the day, our brains are pretty full, and sometimes we're just like
fried. The last thing I want to do is pick what I want to eat.
Yeah, and sit there
then
and make the whole thing from scratch.
Then I make a bad decision. That's another thing. Like if I'm tired, I am not going to make a good decision on what kind of food I want to eat.
If you're hangry, if either of us are hangry,
we're going to McDonald's or Whataburger every time.
And that's a bad decision for multiple reasons. My wallet and
right.
My thighs.
So get yourself in a good state of mind where you can make a clear decision, build a system. That way you never have to make that decision again. Yep. You can trust your system has made the right decision in that area and you don't ever have to go back to it again.
Yep. And then our next point is rid yourself of limiting beliefs. Like the fact that, well, it's not even a fact. I tell myself, or we tell ourselves, we're not good at sales. We can't do sales. Like, no, who says? Yeah, you can, because we've physically proven that we can. We just have to rid ourselves of, things that don't actually exist in reality were creating that reality for themselves. Nobody told me at birth that I was bad at sales. Nobody said like, I'm sorry, your baby's 69,729. You're going to be terrible at sales. It's already decided. So like, why am I putting that on myself? Nobody's made that decision.
Right. And like also when we first started the woodworking business and all of our friends wanted stuff, like I threw my hands up. I was like, there's no way I could do sales. Like I have to raise my prices because we don't have enough free time to get everywhere. Like I was so crippled by having to raise my prices to try and like lower the demand that like I almost just said no to every order that came in. I was so terrified of the of the idea of asking for money, and I cannot believe that 3 years later we've got a podcast and a YouTube channel and all sorts of paid content on like teaching sales. Like I'm just as surprised as you are. Like I was so crippled by that idea that I just decided to attack it. It was bothering me so much that I was bothered by the fact that I was bothered.
Yeah.
And so that's when I went to the local library. A lot of you guys know this story. I went to the Minot, North Dakota Public Library, checked out every book that they had on sales and selling, and read them over the course of 2 weeks. And all of a sudden, I realized I wasn't afraid of anything.
Yeah.
Or what I was still afraid of, other people had been afraid of, and they had completely conquered. And so again, I was dragging what I was afraid of into the spotlight and realized it was just a shadow of something really small. It wasn't actually, the cartoons, like, it's
where
like the shadow of a mouse on the wall and it looks huge, but then it's like a little mouse.
Yeah.
It's like, it was the same metaphor. Like when I've actually looked at what I was afraid of, it wasn't really anything to be afraid of. So anyway, rid yourself of limiting beliefs. If you want to do more work on this, the first step is identifying the limiting belief. Again, that's really hard to catch yourself on your limiting beliefs. But once you identify it, you have to interrogate it. And the procedure that we use, Google Byron Katie, Byron Katie, Katie, not Katie Byron Katie. I'm sure it'll all show up. But her name is Byron Katie, not Katie Byron. I did that wrong so many times. But she's got a little series of 4 questions about these random, like, scary thoughts that pop into your head, or like that make you angry or that make you scared. And she just runs you through 4 questions. We'll put it in the show notes, but you basically just run through these 4 questions and you interrogate that belief or that thought that you have. And if it doesn't work for you, or through the series of 4 questions, if it doesn't serve you in any way, get rid of the thought, get rid of the pattern, get rid of the fear. You just eliminate it because you've taken the scariness away from it by interrogating it, and now it doesn't serve you. So quit thinking it or get rid of it.
Those questions have really helped me a lot too, where it's like, is this providing me any value? Like, do I need to act on this? Is this a valuable thought to keep in my head? And if not, like, ditch it. And at first I was so uncomfortable with, like, am I allowed to just completely ditch a worry or a thought? Like, am I irresponsible in doing that? And then I realized I was actually irresponsible by keeping it in my head and allowing it to, like, fester and grow bigger when it wasn't serving me. There was nothing good about it. If anything, it was actually hurting me.
All right, so we've talked about it enough. We actually have to put the questions in here now. I was just going to link at the show notes, but we've talked about it too much. So the first question is when you have a fear or when you have a thought pop in your head and you don't know, like, if it's slowing you down, if you've identified something you think is a limiting belief or a fear, number 1, is it true? And not just like,
could it be true?
Could it be true? But like, is it true? Yes or no?
Will aliens invade? Could it? I mean, what if? What if? Like, is it happening today? No. Right.
And then question number 2, how can you absolutely know that it's true? Sometimes you can't. Like, sometimes you cannot, with the given amount of information you have right now, you cannot know if it's absolutely true or not. So sometimes it's not. And then number 3, how do you react when you believe that it's true? If you're scared or you're afraid of something happening, how does that change your actions? How do you react? Is everybody mad at you? Are you on edge? Do you make poor decisions? Do you go to Whataburger instead of eating a salad? Like, what do you do differently when you're afraid or when you have that negative thought?
Do people kind of avoid you because you're not a person they want to be around?
Now you're getting serious.
Yeah. Anyways, you can get deep with these.
And then the last question is like, what kind of person would you be without that thought or without that fear? The opposite, like, flip it to the opposite. Like, the example she uses all the time is like, somebody cuts me off in traffic and, I start immediately getting mad at them. So number 1, is it true? Like, are they a terrible driver? Are they a terrible driver? And my first instinct is to just say yes. Well, then the second thing is like, can you absolutely know that that's true? Well, I don't know that they're a terrible driver. They could be in a rush. They could be, they could also be having a bad day. They could be thinking about something else. So I don't actually know that that person hates me and they cut me off in traffic. So number 3, how do I react when I believe that that's true? If somebody cuts me off in traffic and I get angry, all of a sudden I've made everybody else in the car uncomfortable. I've put myself in a bad mood. I can't make a good decision for the next 5 to 10 minutes because I'm in this weird emotional state.
Right.
And if I do make a decision, it's a decision based on anger and fear. And I don't want to make a decision based on anger and fear. And then the last question is, how would you be without the thought or the opposite thought? If instead of being angry popped into my head, what if I felt compassion? Like, oh shoot, I'm sure that like they really need to get home. Maybe their kid is like sick or something. Like I just remember when I was a kid, like I was helping my mom. My sister was like, my sister was like months old, still in a stroller, probably couldn't walk. And I didn't think my mom put enough bug spray on her face. So I like emptied the whole can of bug spray right into her face. And like my mom, she took her to the ER. And like, anyway, my dad made a 2-hour drive from Dallas to my hometown. It is normally a 2-hour drive, and he made it in like 45 minutes. So I think about that. Like, what if that guy's daughter is in the ER and he's trying to drive home and like, okay, all of a sudden I have compassion and I'm a better person for giving them compassion. I can make a better decision going forward for having compassion. And here's the joke. None of those scenarios are true. The guy probably was just mad that I was in his way and he cut me off. It doesn't matter what's true or not in that scenario. The fact is I'm responsible for how I respond to the fear. And if I choose to be fearful, even if that's the truth, I'm going to make a worse decision. So if believing that they're angry at me is a delusion and believing that they've got a reason to be like angry and cut me off in traffic is a delusion, I'd rather believe the delusion that makes me a better person.
Right.
And that's my punchline. And again, that's way deeper than I wanted to get onto this topic, but that's how powerful these 4 questions can be when you're trying to eliminate a fear or when you're trying to eliminate a limiting belief, is because you do the opposite. You put yourself in the opposite person's shoes and you say, am I a better person for believing the opposite? Okay, great. I'm going to be an optimist where this is concerned. I'm not going to be a pessimist. And so many of you are, I'm talking to myself too, are default pessimistic. Your first thought is angry. And
they did that on purpose.
And like, how dare you put everybody around you in that bad mood just because you have a negative state of mind? That's just not fair to everybody else around you. So if you're if this is kind of convicting, or like, I'm telling you, I'm the worst of the worst.
It is for us too.
I am the worst of the worst at this.
Yes.
But we can get better. We can improve. We can go through those 4 questions and we can get out of our own way, and we can reduce the number of limiting beliefs that we have that aren't serving us by using those 4 questions. So thanks, Byron Katie. Appreciate you.
Thanks, not Katie Byron.
So the next thing is give up control. Again, like we've, I got a story on this one. So my old job in the Air Force used to be, I would sit in a bunker for 24 hours. It was just me and one other person, and we were waiting on a call for the end of the world. We were doing nuclear missiles, and I was the guy sitting underground waiting to push the big red button. It didn't matter. Like, I wasn't making, it's not like the movies. I hate to spoil it for you, but like, I made no decision. If the order came down, I was just part of the weapons system. Like, none of it was like my decision to launch or not launch. So anyway, I say all that to say it's you and one other person. You're down there. You're in charge of nuclear weapons, something rather important. And you are allowed to sleep, one at a time down there. But if you're with a new person and you're trying to train them up, it's really hard for the commander, the person in charge down there, to go to sleep, because if it's a brand new person, they haven't seen a whole lot.
If they screw up, it's on you.
It's old equipment. It catches on fire. Anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but like, it's old equipment, and it takes a fair amount of experience to be proficient at dealing with whatever chaos comes your way. And it took me a long time to like be at a comfortable level to let these newer deputies, the newer people, come in. And I didn't sleep a lot of nights.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time letting go of control because I was so afraid something bad would happen.
And it hadn't even happened yet.
Right.
Well, how about you save the lost sleep for when it actually happens, you know?
Well, and that's what I started thinking was like, geez, like I'm sitting here like wide awake because I can't go to sleep because I'm afraid that they're going to need me at any moment. And I'm like, well, I'm making it worse for myself because if they needed me and they didn't come get me, I'm just staring at the ceiling. There's a little curtain. They're not going to open the curtain. So I'm not going to know that they screwed up anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to be tired and I can't help when I do find out that they've screwed up.
Right.
So I might as well just get some sleep. That way, if they need me, I'm rested and prepared to help them. And that took me about 1.5 years to finally come to that realization.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. So again, I'm the worst of the worst at this. But again, you got to just build systems to accomplish your task. Remove yourself. Take yourself out of the equation. Trust your ability to train somebody if you're letting go of control in a business. Trust yourself. Trust the version of you that wrote the procedure more than you trust your current self. Because a lot of time, I caught you with this earlier this week. Like you thought you were smart enough to like ship a cutting board without looking at the checklist, and you were tired and you were hungry
all the time. It's like, hey, I could do this with my eyes closed. I've done it 15 times in the past. But you're right. I had been working all day. I had been making calls. My brain was foggy, and I missed a step.
Yeah, she forgot to put some cards and stuff in the box. Again, not into the world stuff, but like we missed a step on the checklist because Jennie thought she knew what she was doing and she didn't reference the checklist. So trust the version of you that wrote the procedure and go from there. And then the last thing is just don't get too distracted. Like don't take the bait on something if it's not part of your goal, because that's how you can fill up your calendar really quick with a lot of obligations that aren't serving you at all. You're getting in your own way because you're trying to help, because you're trying to like spread yourself too thin. Just don't get distracted. If it doesn't tie directly to your goal or whatever it is you're trying to do, whether that's start a business, change careers, it's the same list I always say, like whatever you're doing, don't take the bait on a distraction because it's not actually going to help you in the long term, as nice as it is. Quick example, and then we'll get out of here. I'm sorry this podcast is kind of long, but I don't know. This is the length we've tried to aim for.
Yeah.
But anyway, don't get distracted. Like Jennie and I really want to help out with our local church. Like we really want to spend more time helping out. But where are we going to get that time from? That time is going to be taken from our business. And if the goal of our business is to essentially do, it's very similar goals to what the church is doing.
Yeah, long term.
Like helping people and like, you know, providing employment and like helping people grow over time as human beings. Yeah. Like it's the same goals. So why am I stealing from, you know, the business that's got the same goals and giving, like we're spreading ourselves too thin by volunteering for too much. Not that we won't ever do anything with the church, but like
and we do.
We just have to be very conscious of the fact that like we got to be careful with our time.
Right.
And if we really want to help people, if we really want to make an impact in the way that we've casted our vision for our businesses to do, then we need to stay focused on our business. And even as something as like helpful as helping out with, you know, church stuff or whatever, like we've really got to take inventory of our time and see if it's going to be worth it. So with that being said, wow.
Whew,
let's get to some action steps.
Finally, goodness gracious.
I'm sorry. I'll let you do these. I've been talking a lot.
Action step number 1. Where's my ding? Perfect. Outsource part of your daily routine. Just a part. Like make it a system or another person. One thing we've done is we've made a little like checklist for a morning and night routine because we'll like, you know, we'll work all day, and then in the evenings we'll like clean up the yard, or we'll take the dog to the dog park because the poor thing's been cooped up in the house all day. And then we get back and it's like 8:30. There's still a sink full of dishes because we meal prepped that day, but we can't stay up too late because we've got to be up early, you know, to record or do a podcast the next morning. So then the dishes get left, and then we wake up in the morning and it's like, well, now I can't make breakfast or make coffee because this is dirty because I didn't do the dishes because I can't trust myself to like lean on my own brain or my own understanding. So what we did is we made checklists for the morning. When we wake up, we do this. And when we go to bed, we do this. For example, we wash all the dishes before we go to bed so that when we wake up in the morning, we're not inhibiting ourselves from doing anything else.
Yep. We check the locks on the door. We make sure all the lights are off. We take the dog out one more time. Like it's just all the stuff that we sometimes forget. That way we don't have to remember to lock the doors. We don't have to remember to turn the lights out. It's on the checklist.
Because I've forgotten plenty of nights to finish the dishes before I go to bed, and I just go to bed. So I clearly can't, you know, trust myself every single day of my life to do it properly. So
outsource part of your daily routine. You can either trust a system to do it, or you can trust another person to do it. Either way, you're just trying to like practice taking stuff off your plate, reducing the number of decisions you have to make.
And action step number 2. is going to be identify and interrogate. It's intense. Identify and interrogate a limiting belief that you have.
So you're gonna be able to identify some of those limiting beliefs by listening for yourself to say the following words. You say things like "I can't," or "obviously," or "who in their right mind would do X, Y, Z." Like those are the things that are limiting beliefs that you need to interrogate. So if you start, be careful. The more you listen for it, the more you're going to hear it.
And it's going to be scary. You're like, dang it, I do this more than I thought I did.
Right. So listen to "I can't," or "obviously," or "who in their right mind," or things like that. That's where you're about to uncover a limiting belief or an assumption that may or may not be true.
And then really dive in on that and say, why? What do I fear? And why? Do I have anything to prepare myself for like dealing with that fear? And just dive deep, kind of like we did earlier. And a lot of times you'll realize that fear is meaningless. Like it doesn't even exist. So yeah, those are our 2 steps. Outsource part of your daily routine and identify a limiting belief that you have and interrogate the heck out of it.
Yeah. Do we have any announcements?
Yeah. So we had our first guest on the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Last week.
Yes,
and
RJ.
that was so much fun.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. We really like RJ. Just a great guy.
Yeah,
So.
all around great dude. And if you haven't heard that, go back and listen to it. So it was a really good episode. But next week, we're sharing some more of our friends with you. We are sharing Justin and Lauren of Justin and Lauren Photography. They are fellow Air Force people, just like us, who started a business. And they have some really good stuff to share. Like, it was good. I'm excited for you guys to hear this one.
Yeah, they're photographers in Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston. I know geography.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know states.
I've lived in the USA my whole life. So yeah, and they're in the Charleston area, photographers, and just a great couple. Had a great conversation with them. So that's what you'll hear next week. Other than that, I don't think we have anything else.
Nope.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.